So it's Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my good friend and a Hall of Fame promoter, Frank Warren. Frank, you're out in sunny Portugal. Not long been in the US, obviously, for the big show last week. How's the jet-setting lifestyle treating you?
It's knackering me. I'm an old geezer, you know that.
Mate, you're a spring chicken compared to Bob Arum.
Oh, listen, so's Moses. And I'm not talking about it's your armour.
Let's hope Bob don't watch this. So yeah, I was talking about last week. You're out in the US for the Riyadh season launch in the USA. Seemed to be very well received. What did you make of it? What were your reflections on the event as a whole?
Good fights, weren't they? I mean, a good fights. That was quite a technical fight. We took the main one between Crawford and Madrilov, and I thought Madrilov really boxed well. And I've done a couple of interviews before. I said, I don't know what he's got. He might be another Lomachenko, and yes, and I thought he showed that he could be. There was nothing in that fight I didn't feel going into the last couple of rounds. I thought it was a very close fight.
Yeah, Eddie Hearn said afterwards he wasn't insisting that Madrimov had won the fight. He's obviously a matchroom fighter, but he said he felt they didn't get the respect they deserved on the judges' scorecards.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing. I mean, I thought he won it, Crawford, but I don't think there was, there weren't a lot in it. They're very close rounds.
How much can we take from Crawford's ability to succeed more at the weight he's at now and to go even further up?
Well, look, it's like everything. How old is he now? Was he 35 now? Is he 34, 35?
I think, but I'd have to
check. He really?
Yeah, I think he might be 36.
It's like everything. You're growing to it. It's the one. I mean, the weight is one thing, and it's a very important aspect. But the other thing is the skill sets that he's got. He's a very skillful fighter, so he can, where someone might be a bit heavier than him, or naturally heavier than him, he has the skill sets to negate some of that advantage. But that only goes up to a certain level, then it becomes very difficult. But he's a very, very good fighter. There's no doubt. Well, I mean, don't need me to say that. I mean, an idiot would know that. He's a very good fighter.
I mean, you've got an exceptional middleweight yourself in Hamza Shiraz at the moment. He's obviously a very big middleweight, tall, rangy as well. Crawford, if he went up another stage, because he's at light middle or super welter now, how would he be able to cope? Would his skill set compensate for that massive size disadvantage?
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah, well, but just generally against someone
I
of
would
that
like
stature.
to do. I mean, I think that would be a good fight to do next year. If they go for it, I would have no problem with that.
Yeah, which means you'd favour your man very much so, even though Crawford's a pound for pound number 1, 2, or 3 for most people.
Well, I remember when we done Ricky against Costa Zoo. Costa Zoo was pound for pound number 1. And Ricky went into that fight as a huge underdog, but I felt he had and we picked the right moment. We didn't rush the fight. We picked the right moment. And I think if you get the right moment and let Hamza a little bit more experience, I think, that'd be a good fight for him. And even if he got beat, it's not the end of the world. The guy that's good. Oh God, let me kill this. Sorry, mate.
It's all right.
The guy that's going to be the guy that will be the Madrilov has shown that what a good fighter he is. He's going to be a handful in that division.
Has Madrimov also shown that Crawford is beatable, certainly at this weight?
No, I mean he's a very skillful fighter. I mean, what's he had? 300 amateur fights.
Yeah, very experienced.
I mean, it's like Lomachenko. These guys have a wealth of experience at that level, and they're men when they turn pro. They're not doing it they don't turn pro at a very young age, that's for sure. But he showed what he's all about, and there was a couple of times where you could see he was sort of modifying what he was doing, adapting to the situation. But Crawford just had that bit more experience, and that was a telling point in the fight.
There was 2 big heavyweight fights on the bill as well, neither of which went the way the bookies thought they would. We'll start with Andy Ruiz against Jarrell Big Baby Miller. How did you feel about that? Because obviously it was called a draw.
I thought Miller won it.
You thought Miller won?
I thought Miller won it. Yeah, I thought he won it.
Just based on activity, or?
No, just based on that he won the fight. I mean, he won the fight. I mean, before the fight, you haven't got a rocket science. The other guy's been out for 2 years. Miller's had he obviously coming off of the loss against Daniel, but I fancied him. I felt that he's The problem you've got with Rui is he doesn't live the life. And that's the problem. He just doesn't live the life. And if you're having 2 years out, you know, that's going to be telling for you. And the fact of the matter was, you know, he's got quite fast. Actually, both of them have got fast hands, but he's a bit better on his feet. He's better on his feet, Miller than Ruiz. So anyway, I felt he won the fight.
And you said about Ruiz not living the life. Jarrell Miller hasn't always lived the life in a completely different way, of course. Your good friend now, Eddie Hearn, took quite a bit of criticism in the build-up to this show for saying he'd never work with Miller again some years ago, and doing a bit of an about turn by, you know, his inclusion on this show and doing some pre-fight stuff with him. What do you make of that criticism? Fair or unfair?
I think at the time I get where he's coming from. I mean, when you're promoting and you're putting your money up and you're making fights and someone does what they do, you know, cheats or whatever they do, it's not right. I mean, obviously it's not right, and it's quite, you know, you're selling tickets to the public, and there are times where you know, things like this happen, and it's it's not a good thing. But that was then. Miller's hopefully turned his life around or tried to change his lifestyle. I hope he's done it anyway, and let's hope he continues to do that. If he does anything untoward in the future, then they should just throw away his license and not let him fight again, so he knows what to expect.
So is your view, as long as he tests clean now, you're happy to work with him?
My view is this. My view is we have governing bodies who take sanction fees off of us as promoters. They are supposed to be overseeing the sport. It's not the promoter's job, although we don't want people cheating, but it's not the promoter's job to police the sport. It's the job of the managers and trainers to ensure their fighters are not cheating, because they are in control of their careers. They are the guys that are training them, and I find it very difficult to believe that a trainer would not know if his fighter was juicing. I'd find that very difficult. So that's their responsibility. It's not, and I'm not ducking out of it. I'm saying that, you know, we go with what it should be. But at the end of the day, it's up to the governing bodies. You want a clean sport, then you've got to put out, then you've got to make the consequences severe, like in Britain at the moment, all this shit that's going on in the streets and that. You want to stop it, whether it's far right, far left, whether it's whatever race it is, whether it's the lunatics on either side. There should be consequences for them. You can't be, setting fire to police station, cars, storming into pubs, doing all these things without any consequences. But if there's no consequences, it happen on a daily basis. And if there's no consequences for juicing, then they'll continue to juice.
Just as a aside to that, before we go back to the boxing, are you kind of relieved to be out of it at the moment while all this stuff's going on back home?
What do you mean? What in England?
Yeah.
I find it soul destroying. I find it sad, really sad what's going on. People capitalise on it. I think the social media and all the, we're used to shite going out on social media,
Right.
From boxing with all the bits and pieces that are, the untruths and whatever. But as far as what's going on back in the UK, it's just, it's awful. And there's no consequences. There's some people stirring the pot and make it worse, making the situation worse. And I don't think, and I don't get this thing where, the police are the politicians are the politicians. They're an elected government at the moment, although there's only just under 80% of the people who voted for them, but they're in power. They're the government. So the government that set down what the laws should be and so forth, and they set down the policies. The police are there, and police should be respected. They should do their job, and that's what they need to do. And for me, there should not have to be, and I know they have to liaise with communities and whatever, but you shouldn't have to be going to elders, to other people to get people to behave themselves. They should behave themselves because there's a law, and you should respect the law, and that's it. And if you don't respect the law, then you pay the consequences. And a few people have found that out from the far right. So they're finding out where they are. But that should be an equal playing field for anybody who does that, whatever it's about. That's how it should be, and that's what we vote for. We vote for law and order. We vote for a health service, we vote for education. That's what we vote for, and that's what the government's job is there to do, is to deliver that to the people who elected them, and even the people who didn't elect them. That's what they're there to do, to make sure it happens, and not just pick your battles and pick your opponents. It should be a level playing field for everybody.
I agree. Well, let's hope we've seen the worst of it now, and we're on the road to recovery.
Let's hope so.
Going back to the card on Saturday, Martin Bakole upset the odds makers with his win over Jared Anderson.
Not for me. Again, I've done a couple of interviews out. I was asked about Jared Anderson. I said for me, he's not showing me what everybody says about him. In fact, a couple of fights I've looked at him and I felt he was vulnerable. Bakole, although he can be a bit slow, as I said, he will give it. You'll find out if he can fight or not, because he will give him a good fight. And Bakole done a very, very good job. Good uppercuts, done his job, done what he had to do. But for me, Anderson isn't. For me, confirms now he isn't the fighter, as I said last week, that everybody feels says that he is.
Now, I spoke to Bakole's trainer and manager Billy Nelson yesterday. He's predictably delighted by the result. He reiterated some comments that he said before about a sparring session with him and Daniel Dubois. I'm sure you're aware of it. What's your understanding of what happened in that sparring session?
Well, Daniel Dubois has never had his nose broken. Was it twice in 2 sparring sessions? I mean,
yeah.
Call his. I mean, I wasn't there, but if he'd had broken his nose, then we'd have to pull him out of fights. And he was never pulled out of a fight for a broken nose. The only time he didn't fight was when he tore his ligament in his leg when he fought Kevin Lorraine, or after that fight, and when he broke his eye sockets. He's never pulled out of a fight with a broken nose through sparring. So that's a load of bollocks.
Now, Billy's other contention is that you said in an interview, I think last week, that you'd make a Dubois-Bakole fight. In theory, obviously Dubois has got his own challenge coming up anyway. But Billy said there's no way you would make that fight regardless. He said there's no way you would make your man against Bakole.
Well, he may be right. We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
In the meantime, Daniel's got a big fight ahead of him. And that's what we're focusing on. And I'm not really interested at this moment in time in Martin Bakole. He's not on any list of mine. And that's it. But
you were impressed with his performance, as you say.
He did what I expected him to do.
And he's
I'm saying impressed. He did what he had to do, but I was not impressed with Anderson at all. And nor have I ever been. So I'm not being an after-timer about this. I didn't think it was a smart match for him.
Billy Nelson yesterday said he now believes objectively Martin Bakole's probably ranked somewhere around 7th in the heavyweight division, which I think is probably fair. But he said he thinks the best fight for him next would be Zhilei Zhang, another one of your heavyweights. What do you make of that as a fight?
Zhilei Zhang's got a rematch clause with
Parker.
With Parker.
So do you expect that to happen this year?
We will see. Well, he wants it. They want it to happen, so it'll have to happen because there's a rematch clause.
And since that first fight, we've obviously seen Zhilei Zhang beat Deontay Wilder. Do you expect to see Deontay Wilder in the ring again?
I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's based off his last 2 performances. I would suggest that it probably seemed, that he should be looking at other things. And he's a very wealthy guy. He's a nice guy. I've got a lot of time for him. He's probably going to be like most of those fighters who don't accept it and will want to prove everybody wrong. As Derek Chisora proved me wrong in his last fight. So who knows?
And talking of Chisora, any more news on his opponent in that fight, Joe Joyce? Any idea what's happening with his future?
I'm seeing Joe when I get back, and we'll have a good chat about that, and Derek as well. They're both with Queensbury, and we'll make sure we'll do the right thing by both of them.
Is a rematch a possibility?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that, to be quite honest, and we'll talk to the guys first and see what they say.
One of my colleagues interviewed Joshua Buatsi last night. He's still hopeful of the Anthony Yard fight early next year. Is there any chance of that happening in that time frame?
Well, we'll see what happens with his after September.
Okay.
He got a tough fight in September. I'm telling you, that is a good fight. It's a good quality fight between Josh and
Willie Hutchinson.
and it's going to be, as you say, it's going to be Willie is so up for this fight, so up for it, and they both. I mean, they both got great amateur pedigrees, both of them, and they're both certainly now. Willie's got his mantra back. He's back on track, and Josh is a winning fighter. So, that's a cracker of a fight. I'm looking forward to it.
And as I ask every interview we do at the moment, any progress on the Yard situation?
We have a contractual position, and we're maintaining that.
We shall see how that one pans out. And now, have to ask you about this. You've got a very close relationship with HE, Turki Alalshikh. He's seemed to enter into something of a social media feud in his own right with Canelo, of all people. What have you made of their back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, it's he wanted to make the fight with Terence Crawford, and I don't know. I mean, there's been some backwards and forwards over that between them. It'll settle down and see what happens. But at the moment, that looks like all bets are off. But you know what? In this business, as we all know, it can change. It can change in a heartbeat. We'll see.
But he's been quite private since he's been involved in boxing. He seems to be becoming more and more public facing, if you like, and actually accusing Canelo of taking easy fights, which, in fairness, a lot of fans would agree in recent times. But it just seems a bit of a leap for we call him a promoter, organizer, whatever you want to call him, to go into it a one-on-one thing with a fighter.
Well, he's chairman of the Riyadh season, and he controls the budgets for these big Riyadh season shows. So that's where he's at. And as you know, he's a boxing nut, and that's a fight as a fan he wanted to see. I know that he wanted to see, and he was desperate to make it.
Would you do it though? Would you kind of get into it with a fighter directly on social media?
Oh, I think I have over a couple of times. A couple, not many of them, but a couple of them I have. They'll get that. But that's the age we live in, isn't it? That's the age we live in. And all you've got to look at is what since he's been involved in the sport, and Riyadh season's been involved in the sport. How good it's been.
Do you see Canelo and him being able to work it out at any point? Will we ever see Canelo on a Riyadh season show, do you think?
I never say never. Never say never. Never say never.
One of the other things that came up speaking to Billy Nelson yesterday, he praised Spencer Brown, who's of course Tyson Fury's manager as well, for a lot of the work he does behind the scenes on these Riyadh season shows. Just wanted to ask what your experience is with Spencer and how integral he's been to these big events.
Spencer's become Tyson's manager a couple of years ago, and he's done a really, really good job. No doubt about that. And on the Riyadh season shows, he works alongside we all work as a team to get these events over the line. And Spencer's certainly a big part of that. And it's been good fun. And there's some real good fights and shows being put together, of which he's been a big contributor towards.
And September 21st, we see Riyadh season hit the UK for the first time. We know all about the main event, Joshua Dubois. Everyone's very excited about that, I think. What are people maybe missing that they should be excited about on the undercard? What's kind of the sleeper hits there?
Blimey, I mean, we just talked about one of them, haven't we?
Yeah, Buatsi Hutchinson.
Cracker of a fight. I mean, it's just a great undercard all the way through. There's some really, really good quality fights on there. I mean, some fabulous fights on there. It's a fighting card. It's the Riyadh season special edition, and it lives up to the brand Riyadh season. No doubt about that.
So let me ask you, because there's not many where you haven't got an interest where one of your fighters isn't on there, but Liam Smith, Josh Kelly, That's one where you're not promoting either guy directly. Who do you fancy in that?
I'm not sure. It depends what what Liam's got left in the tank. That's going to determine how the fight goes. Josh is obviously a younger guy and he's a good fighter, but Liam on his day is a good fighter. And I don't know what happened in the rematch with Eubank. I mean, the first fight with Eubank, he done a job on Eubank, didn't he? So if he reproduces that form, it's going to be a good fight, no doubt about that. He's up for it. He fancies it.
You had Liam from the start of his career, took him to a world title, of course. Any regrets that that relationship didn't carry on back then? He's been a couple of different places since.
We didn't have a row or anything. I mean, in fact, when I see him, we get on very, very well. I like Liam. I got, out of the brothers, he was the one I got on with best. He was, just very down to earth and, real nice fella. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do, but we had some fabulous times together. We had a couple of good fights, didn't he? Couple of world title fights. Won a world title fight with us, so we delivered for him.
And he said he got some attention a couple of weeks ago with some comments he made about Ben Shalom from when he was with Boxer. He said they never really had much of a relationship, which I don't think Boxer loved hearing. How close, just generally, should a promoter be to a fighter, do you think?
It depends. I mean, it depends. It's like everything. How close are you to the people you interview? A couple of them you get on really well with. Some of them you might think are a bit of arseholes. Some are not bad fellas. Some are okay. Some you can take or leave. That's life. That's life in general. But I get on well with most of them. I mean, I appreciate, I appreciate boxers and what they do and the tough job that they have. Toughest job in sport, no doubt about it. And sometimes you get two guys who you really like, and it happens on a lot of occasions now, it seems, where you like them, they're both with you and you're both behind, but they fight each other. You sort of sit there and you're watching and looking for the, and you're sort of sitting on your hands and biting your tongue, sort of thing, while they're fighting. It's there, but I think most of the fellas I have a decent relationship with. Most of them come from a similar background from what I come from anyway. It's what I come from as a kid.
Has there been anyone over the years that you kind of single out as someone you were particularly close to or had I don't know, more of a fatherly relationship with?
Enzo McAnally, real great guy. Dennis Andrews, I really liked. Really, really lovely guy. I mean, I couldn't make a list of them, but I don't want to be upsetting people. Naz, I did, until the nonsense with his brothers, that was a really good relationship at the time. I had a real good relationship with Joe Calzaghe right up until the last fight. And since then, I mean, I've seen him a few times. You get on. Ricky, I had a good relationship up until I never had, by the way, never had a row with any of them. It was always through something else, like, Ricky's case, it was his dad. They're probably more famous ones, but lots of them over the years. Lots of some really good, some lovely people, some nice fellas. Colin Power, before your time, I can go back over the years. I mean, Keith Wallace has passed away now. Jimmy Duncan, loads of guys.
Is there anyone? Is there anyone in the stable now where you have that kind of emotional investment?
Quite a few of them.
Dennis McCann, maybe.
There's an old adage in boxing: you shouldn't get close, but you do, because that's what it is. I mean, that's how the sport is, and they're because and also because you may not have that relationship doesn't mean you don't respect their ability and their what they've done. Some of the kids start from day one with you. Other guys come in after being elsewhere and come in and they're good fellas. Nice guys to get them. It's I think in general, there's a few of them can be arseholes, but they probably think the same thing about me. So, you know what I mean? That's how it is.
Have you found?
And I've met some arseholes as well.
I believe it. Present company accepted, hopefully. But has it changed as you've got older? Because obviously, when you first started out, you're the same age as most of the people you're working with, even younger than they were. Whereas now you're, maybe a father figure more. So is the relationship kind of changed? Grandfather figure. So is the relationship changed?
A bit. I don't know. I mean, I suppose because I do this every day, and it's, you know, and you know, it's what I do. It's just what I do. You know what I mean? It's not like when I was younger and I was in it. It was like a different thing. I've gone from one life to another life. This is now what I've been doing for, what's it now, 48 years. I've been doing this now, so it's a long time. And you know, it's no. The one thing that does amuse me is the excuses you get for certain things and that, and you know, and no one can not. I don't think anyone's come up with a new excuse in the last 10 years that I've not heard before.
Well, what though? For what? Like pulling out of fights or?
Pulling out fights, look, you know, maybe getting a loss or whatever. No,
All right, well,
whatever. There's always something. Yeah.
good stuff. Frank, really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your time in Portugal. And yeah, let's catch up when you're back.
I will, and I look forward to seeing you then.